Hey there, sweetness, how goes it? I do hope that it goes well. We're gonna have a chat in this video. A little get to know me, if you will. If you will. Let's start with a little music. Kalichi, Drug Addiction, Part 1.
See, everybody got a story to tell. Well, here's mine. My pain's deep, I've been through hell. I managed to survive, so I got a story to tell. Listen, I stand victorious, make the sign of the cross. Look, I'm here to be the voice for every friend I've ever lost. Let me pray as I put together my hands. I've never been ashamed to tell you the person I am. When it comes to doing drugs, I've never been a rookie, but hold up. Let me tell you about the places that they took me. I haven't shot where these
name is Gypsy and I am an addict. I would like to think back to a year and number and age where I started, but I can't. I started so young. Painting is going to be the point. Drawing, art. Um, Share a little bit about what brought me here. So, um, in 2016 I overdosed, and I was pronounced dead on arrival 3 times in a row. I was a single mother, staying with the parents of my child's father, and as far as I was concerned at that given time, I was like a monster, a momster, if you will. I was 16 years old when I met my daughter's father. He was about to turn 24, I believe, something of the sort. Uh, I had dabbled a little bit with some pills, but I was not a full-blown addict. I could take them or leave them. They were fun. I met my daughter's father, and well, he had a lot more experience in that department. A lot of my firsts in the drug world were with him. And with or without the drugs, we had a very toxic, dangerous, and abusive relationship. I didn't know at the time, but it was domestic violence and narcissistic abuse, antisocial narcissistic abuse. So, uh, I was cheated on, lied to, gaslit, and all the things that you may or may not have learned about narcissistic abuse. My daughter and I were experiencing those things at the hand of her father, but also, more so, at the hands of his family as well, that helped to mold him into the monster that he had become. Because we are capable of molding people and changing them, as much as we like to deflect that accountability sometimes. Anyhow, after probably nearly a decade of severe abuse, abusing drugs, abusing each other, abusing everyone and everything around us, basically, we separated. We were living at his parents' house, his father's, and he ended up moving out and getting his own place and leaving me and our daughter at his father's. I had previously had my own apartment. When my daughter was born, we lived in our own apartment, though when I had applied to the apartment, I was told that my daughter's father wasn't allowed to live there with us because he was a felon for drugs. I let him stay there. He did not help with anything, and I ended up losing the apartment. So after a bunch of bouncing around with my daughter, who was, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 at that time, uh, went to go just smooth things out with her dad and stay with him in his. I don't know if you guys do or don't know a lot about narcissism, but I will say that what I'm talking about is the on the books diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder, as well as antisocial personality disorder. That is what my daughter's father was diagnosed with after my overdose. And I was told at that time that majorly the people with those two things as a dual diagnosis together are like serial killers. Anyway, I went to go stay at his dad's. The abuse got worse. When my daughter was born, he had been given 3 weeks of home time, like a paternity leave type thing. And he went back to work within a few hours of my daughter being born. She was born with Group B strep. That is very dangerous. She almost wasn't born alive. But she was. She just had a lot to fight through. A blood infection, skin infection, and it was seeping into her bones. And they were shoving needles that could get to her marrow into her thighs, and it was just her and I. At that given point, I hadn't spoken to my father in quite some time because in my sobering up for my pregnancy, I had come to start to remember some repressed thoughts, memories, mostly around my father, and when I tried to speak with him about them, it became rip-roaring fights and abuse. I'd later learn that he was a big part of my attraction to the dark side. To the narc side. My father molested me. I can't tell you when it began, but I can tell you that it ended when I was 9. And I'm not going to go too far into the detail, but I will say that my father was very good at gaslighting me, brainwashing me, warping my perception, and my perception of myself. Throughout my childhood, I was not diagnosed with, because it was never strong enough for a diagnosis for these things, because it wasn't these things, but things like body dysmorphia, borderline personality, dissociation, and it's like, well, a lot of the times those things occur in a person, in a child, that's being warped by their caretaker. fed a different identity than the reality. And force fed. I may lose track of this story in a million different places, so I'm going to jump to this part real quick. I found my art, or my art found me, after my overdose, when I was still angry that I survived because I overdosed on purpose. So every video that makes its way to this channel, every picture, every scribble, every scrap of my artwork and my crafts, it's me saying thank you to God for letting me outlive myself. And anyone else that tried to bring me down, did bring me down, has, could. Anyway, in the hospital, my daughter's father left us. I had tried to speak to my dad about some things when I started to get sober for my pregnancy, and it turned into a big old argument. But being there alone in the hospital, he had heard what was happening through the family and called. And I talked to him and I apologized for my warped memories and letting the drugs get to me and ever speaking bad on his name or anything like that. Just so I could have him in my life and not feel alone. I thought my little girl was gonna die. Anyway, fast forward to moving in with my daughter's father and his father, and things were just really lonely and abusive. I know I've used that word a lot. I'll probably use that a lot more. It seems to be the best one we got these days for this, expressing that kind of culture. Anyhow, the abuse got worse at my daughter's family's house, and her father ended up moving out, going and getting his own apartment, where of course he made sure to pay all the bills, or ask his dad to help him. Left my daughter and I, and things got really dark for her and I. I'm not going to go really far into the details of all of that, but I'm going to say that I was in a state of malleability. I was very easy to manipulate and to convince that I was the problem. There was just so much wrong with me that these people needed to fix me and show me how to be human. But they were very inhumane themselves, and so I couldn't connect with them. I couldn't be what they expected. I couldn't be what they wanted. And I got berated, abused. And my daughter, her too. getting fired from the job that I had at the time for smoking pot on my lunch break. I was honest about it. I didn't try to lie or anything. I just took my punishment and ate it. But I had already been told 1,012 times that I was going to get kicked out onto the streets and these people were going to keep my daughter if I didn't hold down my job. I mean, I guess, responsibility makes sense and all, but circumstantially, a little more humility could have gone a long way. But when I lost my job, I knew what to expect, and at that point I was working overnights. I had worked, I think, 5 nights in a row, and I really lived a Cinderella story with my life. I worked 10-hour nights. I'd come home, I'd do every single thing there was for chores to do, and then I'd lay down and try to get a little bit of sleep before my daughter got out of school. And then I'd spend as much time in the day as I could with her, but of course I was, sleepy and tired and groggy and cranky and not very efficient at home because I was focused on being efficient at work. And I let a lot of things slip by. I started using again not very long after my daughter was born, really, or not very long after I stopped breastfeeding. And at that point, I was using hardcore. And the people that I was living with were giving me their prescription drugs that were too strong for them to take because they were anti-psych meds and they thought I had a psychotic problem because I slept too much in the daytime and was up at night because I was molested at night when I was a little girl. So I have a hard time. I am now what they call the watcher. I stay awake at night and I watch for the bad things. Not necessarily in my home, but even that. I listen for echoes through the streets of someone needing help and screaming. It's a part of who I am. And learning to live with me and love me is a task and a process sometimes. I was born into trauma. So having people that, were supposed to be close for me and weren't, was traumatizing all its own. And after I got fired, I waited for my daughter to get taken to daycare, school. At the time I didn't drive, so her family would bring her, and they went off to work, and I swallowed pretty well every pill in the house and snorted what I could and drank as much alcohol as I could force down with it, and I just waited. I don't remember very much. I remember waking up with a needle in my chest. I remember waking up and these paramedics, looking back now, I know it was paramedics. I didn't know at the time these people were standing over me with the paddle things, and it smelled really funny. And just the looks on their faces when I woke up and looked at them. 3 times though, my heart stopped. I was, as I said, pronounced dead on arrival when they got there. They were able to stabilize me with a needle once and a paddle twice, I believe, something of the sort, and get me the 20 miles just about that it was to the hospital. Or maybe it was like 12 miles. I might have exaggerated a little. But point, I could barely draw a stick figure or anything, really. A fucking yellow Walmart style smiley face. Like, a couple little things. And I'm not saying I'm Picasso or Van Gogh or anything now, but when I woke up in the hospital, as I said, I was a little angry. Things got worse. Like I said, I before the overdose had been threatened with my daughter's family keeping her, and I come from very humble beginnings. My family don't have much, and I didn't have anything, and these people made 500,000 plus a year, and when they tell you they got the money for the lawyers and you'll never get your kid, sometimes the brain has no choice but to believe them, or it doesn't think it does. I didn't think I did. After the overdose, they wouldn't bring my daughter to see me. No one came except my abuser to ask how much of the abuse had I shared with the professionals. After that, I remember doctors and nurses coming and knocking on my door. I was in that hospital for about 3 weeks, I think. They kept me after my health started stabilizing for my mental health, of course, right? And, well, when I woke up, I was like this for weeks. I was still like this when I left the hospital, actually. All my steps, I could barely take any. And just everything, my whole system, it was almost like I had electricity coursing through me every second. And they would come and knock on my door, the doctors, the nurses, whatever, and they'd tell me they were going to keep me longer if I didn't wake up, get out of bed, come and participate, eat some food, do something, but I had no life left in me. I had none in me to speak of to me. I had already had it sucked away, beaten away, screamed away, controlled away, forced away, abused away, to the point that I just gave the rest of it away. And I was angry that it wasn't taken. And things got worse when it, came to my daughter. Not only did I not get to see her, I didn't get to talk to her, I didn't get to hear her voice, nothing. And after so many times of them knocking and coming and telling me, I was in there through Mother's Day. I missed Mother's Day with my daughter. They'd come and knocked and knocked and knocked, and just one time, one of them made a threat that, I was like, oh, fuck. I think it was like, we're going to keep you for another 2 weeks or something. And I'm like, God, I don't even have anywhere to go, but I know I want to get out of here. So fine, I'll get up, I'll have your breakfast, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And I went into this art class. I'm looking around and I'm just like, and they had me sit down and ask me like what I want to do for a project, and they had flower pots, the tan terracotta flower pots. I'm like, that looks easy. I can paint a little fucking smiley face or something on that and call it good and go back to bed. And one of the nurses came over, the like therapeutic nurses or something, and she was talking to me and, you know, asking me what it was that had landed me there. And I started talking about all the things, and it didn't take me long to start talking about my little girl. And she said to make something for her. Even if I don't want anything, make something for her. And all of a sudden it went from, God, what I gotta slap down on this fucking flower pot to just get out of here, to what kind of message do I want to make it out of here from me to her? And it was sunflowers. And I put effort into them, and they weren't perfect, but they were pretty. And I was proud, because painting those sunflowers made me want to live. Painting them made me stop being angry that I did. And it gave me hope. To give that flower pot to my little girl. And to tell her that she had every right in the world to express herself and her creativity too. And to fight tooth and nail to get her out of any situation and away from anyone that would ever try to shrink her like we had been shrunken already. Or shrink her mother in front of her. And I began to grow. I went into a domestic violence shelter, and I fought for my right to be a mother, and I won. I was given my rights on my birthday, like a gift from God. It's been a long, steady climb. But I got sober. I put down the heroin and I picked up a fucking paintbrush. I didn't do it immediately. Oh, but I did. I have lost friends and family and foe alike through the years. I've lost versions of myself that I thought I couldn't live without. But I found so much more. Through the door of wanting it, knowing I deserve it, fighting for it, being willing to create it and recreate it until it fits. What's your breath of life? A little understanding of my gypsy soul. If you've made it this far, thank you so much, and I love you. we speak again, my dears.